All right, so I was watching Marty from the speaker room, and I was joking with him last night, and I said, Marty, you know, I've heard you're really awesome on stage. What am I going to have to pay for you to bomb? And I think there's a little bit of a miscommunication. I think he heard atomic bomb, because that was some seriously weaponized knowledge. I was a little worried for you guys. So I'm going to tone it down for a few minutes, and we'll come back up and give you a break. So secret algo project launch. Sounds exciting. I have a confession to make. I originally pitched a completely different idea for this talk. And it was a much more sane idea. You know, it was one of those talks where I might make slides for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd get to sleep through the night, and I wouldn't have migraines or anything like that. And then back in November, before we were putting the program together, I went to Rand. And I said, you know, Rand, I have an idea. And what I thought I said was, Rand, I have an idea. And it's kind of weird, and it's kind of complicated. And I don't really think it's going to work. And it's going to take a lot of time and work, and maybe you should talk me out of it. And I think what Rand heard in his head was, Rand, I have an idea, and it's going to be awesome, and it's not going to cost you any extra money, and it's not going to take any SEO Moz dev resources. And Rand said, yay, do it. And so then I came back, I built the proof of concept, and it worked a little bit, and I went back to Rand, and I said, Rand, I think we can step it up a level. And again, in my head, I thought, well, you know, this is going to take a lot more effort, and I'm not sure it's going to work, and I'm not sure we're going to get any data. And what Rand heard was, yay, do it. And so then I got my MozCon topic, and I read it, and it was secret algo project launch, and it was not what I had pitched. And I kind of went, holy shit. It's sort of like getting published before you actually have done any of the research. I had no data at this point. This was barely working. And this is what I thought in my head, but apparently what I said out loud was, yeah, let's go for it. And I think we can build it in time for MozCon. So I can only assume that I was drunk for the first half of 2012. And I learned a few things. So it's been a wild ride. I'm going to take you along for it. This is a little different. There's going to be a lot of data. But of course, one of the top things I learned was, next time before I talk to Rand, ask this guy. Because the magic 8-ball might say no. Rand will never say no. Rand is go, go, go. It's been a while since I've been up here. Some of you know I used to work in the trade show industry. I actually spoke pretty often. And I kind of got a little burned out. And so it's been 6 or 7 years. I'm a little shaky. It's feeling good. It's starting to feel good. But I just want you to remember, before you fill out your evaluations, before you judge me too harshly, Dr. Pete loves the kitties. And I love the babies and the puppies too. So, you know, so go easy on me. All right, so how'd this all get started? Back, I guess, early 2011, I had another idea that I went to Rand with. I really shouldn't have Rand's email at all anymore. And I said, you know, we have this rich history of the algorithm, and there's some great resources out there about all the Google updates, but, you know, as I dug into them, I was kind of disappointed. I felt like either they were really early in the process, 2003, back to the Boston update, and they went on for a couple years and they fell off, or they were really recent and they did a couple years back. But every time somebody built something like this, it just kind of died. And so I really wanted to dig in and look at the whole history and put out a resource, and we published this last year, and it's been very well received. And it's been great, but what I learned along the way, as much data is in this and as much as we put into this, I think what struck me the most was the tremendous gaps we have in our knowledge about the algorithm. Yeah, we've been tracking the algorithm for 10 years now, and there's so much we don't know. And so a lot of what I want to talk about is, what do we know? Where do we get that knowledge from, and what are the gaps? And I said to Patty yesterday, you know, he did such an actionable talk. I said, you know, your talk was all actionable. My talk is totally inactionable. Because my lesson here, in a way, is as bad as you think it is with Google, it's 100 times worse. The algorithm is changing on a level that is going to be shocking to you. So I hope there's a happy takeaway, but I'm not. I'm not sure. I may damage you more than Marty. I don't know. We'll see. So what do we know? 10 years, 2003 to 2012, from Boston to Penguin, we have 20 named updates. And we get very impressed with ourselves, and we go, oh, Panda, caffeine, penguin, you know, we know so much, we're so smart, Panda 3.6, blah, blah, blah. And we think that because we gave it a name, we know something. But look at this time course, 10 years, 20 named updates, that's 2 a year. On the scale of a company that makes $40 billion, you think they're only doing 2 things a year in organic search? So what does this number really look like? Well, unfortunately, in 2010, we found out. This is Eric Schmidt testifying before Congress. It's about as close to the truth as you're going to get. Google was in some hot water. This was a very prepared statement. Eric Schmidt told us that there were 516 changes to the algorithm in 2010. 516. We have named 20 of them in 10 years. This was 1 year. But it gets worse, because Eric also said this. There were 8,157 side-by-side experiments, probably like a quality rater task people saw on A and B screen, but something that they saw that was being tested offline. Now, of those, we don't know if it came from that or if this was a different set. There were 2,800 click evaluations. And what that means is that 2,800 things got tested live on Google.com. Now, maybe only 1% of people saw it, but there were 2,800 changes that were rolled out to some degree in 1 year. And of those, 516 stuck permanently. So what do we know? This is the 2,800 things that got tested. The purple up there is the 516 that got permanently changed. That tiny, tiny red sliver up top, that's the 8 things we know. That sucks. And that's not the name things. That's actually my broad list of things where we got a little liberal with it. Yeah, this isn't good. There's so much of that 516 we don't know. So where do we get our information? We get our information from 2 sources. One on the left is what Google says. And what does Google say? Matt says, look, a panda. He's your fluffy nap time pal. Don't you love him? And then over here on the left, on the right is the webmaster saying, holy shit, giant rampaging penguins. And if you're smart, you're that guy. If you're smart, you're that guy hiding behind the desk, writing your will, finishing your Sudoku, whatever he's doing, I don't know. You know, but he's not up there smiling. But I think, you know, this isn't an anti-Google conspiracy talk, although it's going to sound like it later. A little bit. I think we have to listen to what Google says. Google is saying a lot more. And I think we both have to listen and learn how to listen, because they're also saying what they want us to hear. And there's more information out there, and that's both good and bad. So I want to look at these 2 pieces of information, what Google says and what we observe ourselves, because this is kind of the core of what we've learned. So what does Google tell us? First of all, we have clues from patents. This is an excellent series from Bill Slawski, SEO by the Sea, 10 most important SEO patents. I think it's like a 12 or 13-part post now. I am not a patent guy. Bill does tremendous work. You should definitely read it. These are clues. You know, these are clues about Google's capabilities. But it's tricky because there is a competitive aspect to this. You know, Google may file a patent that is to protect something. They may file a patent that's purposely misleading in some cases. But more often than not, what they do is file patents that either haven't come into play or won't come into play until they have the technology to make it happen. And I don't remember who was talking about caffeine earlier, where the caffeine rollout came, and all of a sudden these things Google had been sitting on for months all started to come into play because they had the architecture and the speed to do it now. So the trick is there's a lot of clues in there, and it's interesting stuff, and some people dig through it really well, but we don't know just because they patented something that it ever became part of the algorithm, and if we do, we don't know when. It could take years for them to be able to do something that they could do theoretically, because on the scale of Google globally, just because you can do the math doesn't mean you can crunch the numbers, you know, on that massive scale. We also have now the direct statements. You know, Google is talking to us more, and that's great, but they tell us what they want us to hear. You know, this is a tweet from Google, one of the Panda updates. OK, they're talking to us, but 1.6% of queries noticeably affected. 1.6% of which queries? 1.6% of all queries, 1.6% of query volume, 1.6% of unique queries, and noticeably affected. Did I notice? Did Matt notice? Did my cat notice? I don't know who's noticing. And this is Matt talking about a mistake they made, which was actually very transparent. So I think we do have to follow this. It's interesting. One of the staff accounts, Pierre Farr, is on Google Plus a lot. And Pierre actually comes out of the webmaster world, and I think kind of has our backs. He's a good guy. So there's a couple people worth following. This is the official Google blog, Inside Search, one of them. And this is about the Penguin update. Again, these things are worth reading. They're good information to dig through, but they're Google's words. And back in November, we started getting some interesting data. Google started publishing the search quality highlights. And basically, it was a list every month of what they did the previous month. And this is great data. I mean, I love to dig into this. I was talking to AJ, I think he's over there last night, and he was saying, you know that this one quality update a couple months ago is Italian, and it translates to this? And I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's amazing. And there's probably like 3 people in the audience who would just think that was awesome. But for most people reading through this, it's really dense. But I'm afraid it's also kind of a distraction for us in SEO. Google is feeding us all this information, making it look transparent, but they're piling a lot of jargon on us. And we're all going, oh, well, look, they told us all this stuff. Now we can go and do our thing. Now we don't have to scrutinize or pay attention to what they do anymore. And the reality is this is advantageous to them. Again, I'm not anti-Google. I use Google every day. I love it. But I think this is a little bit of a game for what can they feed us to keep us happy without really telling us anything. And so we have to be careful. But I did want to dig in. Again, 516 changes in 2010. Amit Singhal had a quote somewhere that there were about 525 in 2011. So this was not an anomaly. So I counted. What do we have so far this year? We have not gotten the June search highlights yet. That's overdue. Google hasn't said why. But 5 months so far, we have 198 changes reported. If we roll that out to the year, we can project 475. I actually think that late 2011 and early 2012, they weren't quite as transparent as they've gotten. So I have a feeling that's a bit of an undercount. So I think we're in the same ballpark. The last 3 years, about 500 changes a year. I did a little breakdown, quick and dirty here. What categories, what buckets do these changes fall into? You look at the top, the red is core major. These aren't all named updates, but these are things that I read and thought, that's pretty big. That's quite a few so far. We got a little bit of local, a little bit of image. Vertical and international, actually pretty big, but vertical is sort of everything that's not, not organic and local and paid. And then we got a lot of core minor, and core minor comes down to things like spell checks, speed improvements, snippet changes, site link changes, things that they are algo changes, but they're often display or feature sort of things that aren't impacting us in a big way. And then we have another problem. This is Panda. And I didn't add 3.9. So Panda, so far, 17 updates in 17 months. 3 major and 14 minor. This is the reality of an algo update right now. This is not Florida where it hits hard and we move on. This has been going on for the last year and a half. And every month we're getting data updates, and every once in a while we're getting algo updates. And we've kind of settled into this bad pattern where we hear there was a Panda update and we sort of go, OK, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 just hit a couple days ago. I do have a slide on that. And I think it's getting, even the updates we name are getting more complicated and more difficult to parse. We don't really know what those small updates mean. And this is actually Panda's odd, because Panda's happening offline. Panda's being processed and fed back into the algorithm. We think Penguin is doing the same thing. So now we have 2 of these things out over here getting fed in, and the main thing is changing. And so it's a mess. Another problem with these updates we have is we don't really know what's big and what's small. So these are 2. This is my wordiest slide, I promise, Rand. Still bullet-free, but it's wordy. These are two of the updates from search quality highlights the last few months. So number one, we have tweaked the handling of anchor text. This month, we turned off a classifier related to anchor text. Our data suggested that other methods of anchor text processing had greater success. So turning this off made the component cleaner and more robust. Well, I clean my table with lemon pledge. It gets cleaner and more robust. I don't really know what that means. On the second keyword stuffing classifier improvement, we have classifiers designed to detect when a website's keyword stuffing. This change made it better. All right, great. 1% better, 2% better, 50% better. Well, number 2 was part of the Penguin update, we're pretty sure. One of 2 or 3 things they revealed. And number 1, we have no idea. You know, if you read number 1, it was a change to how they value anchor text. That could be monumental, and it could be nothing. And so I think we really have to be careful. Google is feeding us a lot of information, but in a lot of ways, they're not really telling us anything. And so we have to be careful, and we have to not stop digging ourselves and get lazy because this information is coming to us. All right, so what do we observe ourselves? One of our big sources of information, unfortunately, is chatter. It's just, what are webmasters talking about? And it's like the CIA with Al-Qaeda when they talk about chatter. We're hearing thousands of voices and trying to figure out if something happened. And the thousands of voices are saying things like, oh, Google sucks, I dropped my rankings today, oh, I'm in so much trouble, was it Panda, was it Penguin? And there's hundreds and hundreds of these, and we're trying to interpret what it means. And there's some great people out there, you know, the people at Webmaster World, for years, you know, if you go back to 2002, 2003, that's the only place that still archives information. That's the only place that served webmasters this long. And Meg and Ted and some of the people over there are amazing. But we're trying to take all this noise of all the things people are complaining about and say, what does that mean? What really happened? And it's gotten worse because now we have localization and personalization, and now everybody's seeing different things too. So now the chatter, there's not even a unified experience of search that we're all seeing every day, where if 10 people said something changed, we could go, yeah, OK, something changed. Now all 10 people are seeing 10 different things. And this is a search a couple months ago for coffee in Chicago. You know, even my core organic is localized. It's my local Starbucks chain. It's personalized. My images are personalized. I was going to make fun of John. I guess John loves the French press. I got to ask him about that. So what does it mean when all these people are talking about something that happened on any given day? And now I want to show you how stupid the whole process of tracking algo updates has really gotten. This is a quote. This is a post by Barry Schwartz. Google mocks me for missing Panda 3.5. I'm not making fun of Barry. Barry has actually been a tremendous asset during building this project. And Barry is doing a really hard job for us. And I think a really thankless job. But the process is idiotic. And here's how the process works. A lot of people complain on any given day. A lot of people wake up and go, oh, crap, my rankings dropped. Was it Panda? And Barry reads it. And Barry says, you know what? Enough people are complaining. I think something happened. So he goes to Matt. And Barry says, Matt, did something happen? And Matt says yes or no. And Matt says yes or no in the special way that Matt hears the question. I'm not trying to attack Matt, but when Matt says no update does not mean that none of the 500 things that happened today, because that's 1.4 things per day. Every day, Matt should say, yes, something happened. And almost 9 out of 10 days, Matt says, no, nothing happened. So what does nothing mean? Well, nothing means no Penguin, no Panda, no update we care to name today. That's what that means. This is how we get our updates. Barry asked Matt, and I love Barry, and he's awesome, and I'm not making fun of him, but this sucks. Because this is a game, and this is Google's game. All right. So I stole this from a meme. This is Gene Wilder. This is Gene Comer. If you haven't seen Young Frankenstein, there's some 20-year-olds in the audience. You should go do it. This is the fundamental question I'm trying to answer. What's normal? What's a normal day for Google? Because we have all these things happening. We're doing SEOs. We're trying to change the rankings every day. So how do we know when something abnormal happened if we don't understand what a normal day is? And what I'm going to show you is that we have no fucking clue what a normal day is. And a normal day is pretty wild. A normal day is like Marty on the stage. And so you don't want to see what an abnormal day looks like. So I built something. It was originally called Project Algo Alert. And it evolved. It was about 50 keywords when we started. But here's what it breaks down to right now. We track the top 10 for 1,000 keywords every 24 hours. Now you might think, why 1,000? That doesn't sound like a huge number, and it's not. A couple reasons. We built our way up, and we found that from about 100 to 500 to 1,000, the noise didn't go down that much statistically. But I also wanted to do something a little different. There's some tools out there like SERP metrics now that are taking their aggregate client data, very large sets, and trying to see how the algorithm moves. And the problem is that their data sets are changing every day. Every time a client does new rank tracking, they're adding more and more data. And so there's a certain after effect to that noise. So I want to try something different and take a very tightly controlled set of data. So we have 1,000 keywords now. They're sampled across 5 volume bins from the AdWords data. They're delocalized. So if it's something like New York restaurants, that got thrown out. They're detemporalized. I don't know if that's a word. Sure. If it's something like 2011 Academy Awards, we throw that out. We depersonalize and delocalize the crawl. So we're trying to get at the core algo as much as the core algo still exists. We take those keywords and we track them every 24 hours at roughly the same time from roughly the same location. And then we measure something called the deltas. And this is just the rate of change. But what we're doing is not looking at any given keyword. We're looking at the top 10 as a whole for that keyword. So we have 2 metrics we use. This looks worse than it is. I think you'll get it. One's called Delta 100. Basically, it works like this. I have 2 top 10s, and I want to compare them for the same keyword. If a ranking in the top 10 didn't move, it's +0. If a ranking moved, let's say it went from 3 to 5, it's plus the move, so it's +2. If it went from 5 to 3, still +2. I'll explain that in a minute. And if it falls out of the rankings completely, it's +10. So Delta 100 for any top 10 can go from 0 to 100. Delta 10, we just take the square root. That's a little bit of mathematical trickery. Delta 100 is a power curve, and we want to normalize it, because if we normalize it, we can do things like take the mean and standard deviation. There's a set of processes called Box-Cox transformations, which is also fun to say, and it turned out that the square root works. I know I'm going to get some questions later, and I would love to talk to anyone afterwards. I'll be at the party tonight and be around until Saturday about, OK, Dr. Pete, +10 if it falls out. Well, what if it falls out from number 1? That's a lot worse than if it falls out from number 10. What about this? What about this? I want you to understand that these are not just where we started. We've also had Delta 10S, Delta 55, Delta 55x30, Delta 55x7, which I call Delta X, and Delta L. And here's the basic story. Delta 55x7 is the most complicated thing I measure. And I'll try to explain it really fast, but it's really boring. Basically, I do exactly that. If it falls from the number 1 spot, it's a 10. If it falls from the number 10 spot, it's a 1. So it goes from 1 to 55. Then we take that, and we take the Delta 55s for the last 7 days. We take the average of that, and we compare it to today, and we get a multiplier. And then we take the cube root of the multiplier, because the cube root is the best Box-Cox transformation. Sounds awesome. Delta X. But it looks exactly the same as Delta 10, and Delta 10 is a lot easier to explain, so Delta 10. Actually, my favorite, Matt, Dr. Matt, I don't know if he's still around. Actually, Dr. Peters, we like to be Dr. Pete and Dr. Peters, that's cool. Has been a huge help during all of this. He came up with Delta L, which was, let's change the top 10 rankings into a word. So on day 1, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then on day 2, if it changes, like if the number 2 and 3 spot change, it'll be A, C, B, D, E, F, G. And then we'll take the Levenstein distance between the 2 words, which sounds really awesome, except it doesn't work at all. But it was cool. Matt and I had a lot of fun. We sent around a lot of emails. All right, so what do we find out now that you have no idea how this works? All right, a lot of data. I just want to start showing you, we'll mostly be showing Delta 10s. These are a couple Delta 100 curves. And this is 1,000 keywords across the bottom. This is what a normal day looks like. We have some high deltas, 40, 50, 60. Drops off pretty rapidly. We have a plateau at 10 because, again, if anything falls out, it's a 10. So That's kind of an anomaly of how we measure. And then we have another plateau at 2 because if anything switches, it's a +2. What's a busy day look like? Well, this is Penguin, April 24th. So what you see is not some kind of weird spike, not some kind of weird anomaly. For a major data update, everything moves. Everything shifts. All the keywords spike, and more keywords show change. So this was good news for us. If something big happens, we can measure it. All right, so what did we measure? Our current round of data collection started on April 4th. Project goes back a bit. Our 1,000 keyword set goes back to April 4th. So the first thing we heard after April 4th was Matt's announcement from that G+ post before that Google goofed. They classified a bunch of domains as park domains, and they screwed them up for a day. And on the day of that glitch, we saw a little bump, and we said, all right, maybe we're doing something right. But not a big one. So, we held out. So about a week later, when the Penguin update came. One day, hit hard. I was probably the happiest person about the Penguin update, and I felt really bad because I woke up that morning, I was like, yes, spike. And I was like, oh shit, my poor clients. They weren't so happy. But it seemed like things were working, and this was the highest delta time we had. I am cheating. These Y's are all expanded. This isn't exact science. We're trying to track something that's very noisy, and we are amplifying it because I want you to see the differences. I want you to see what happened. I'm not going to make wild claims about the state of the error bars. I didn't put them on there because they're ugly. But when the big things happen, we knew we were on the right track. And this is the same scale. This is Penguin compared to the glitch. So, this was not, Penguin was big. So kind of a unique opportunity. One of the things we do is we capture all those top 10 URLs, and we store them every day. So when something big happened, we theoretically got to go back and see what it was. And so Rand said, well, who were the winners and who were the losers? That's what everybody wants to know all the time. And it sounded like a good idea because whenever there's an Algo update, we get a big list of the winners and losers. But what we get in that list is individual sites who won and lost based on the update. And I was looking across the whole data set. And so I ran a bunch of these metrics, and it kind of dawned on me that, wait a minute, what goes up must come down. In the top 10, if 2 people fall out, then 2 people must come back in. For every winner, there's a loser. And so we're really just looking at the rate of change. And so I ran these metrics, and all the bars kind of look the same. And I kind of dropped it, and I said, this winners losers thing, forget about it. And then for some reason, I don't remember why, I went back, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do that winners losers thing again, but I'm going to look at the Penguin data. And so all these bars are about the same, the blue and red, except look at Penguin, April 24th. We had way more winners than losers. And there are 2 big problems with this. One was that I just explained to you why there can't be more winners than losers. So that didn't, I was pretty sure this was wrong. The other thing was this was Penguin. Penguin sucked. Penguin was bad. How could we have more winners than losers on a day that was bad? Well, we did, and I'll tell you how. This is a typical, we'll call it a typical Penguin SERP. So 1 through 10, up top, we have the day before Penguin. So our rankings A through J. What happened the day after Penguin? Well, in this case, this typical SERP, C and D, the 3rd and 4th ranked positions, they fell out. They fell out of the top 10 completely. Well, what happens when number 3 and number 4 fall out? Well, number 5 through number 10 all move up. And suddenly there's 2 spots to fill, so 2 more move up. So we had 8 winners for every 2 losers in this kind of scenario. We had 4 to 1. And you know what? This is just the top 10. What if we went to the top 100? Maybe there were 98 winners for every 2 losers. And this is not an atypical Penguin profile, that some sites at the top got slapped hard. But you know what? For every site that got slapped hard at the top, everybody else moved up. And because we deal with a lot of sites at the top, we only heard about the people who complained for the fall. When you fall into number 1, you complain pretty hard. When you go from number 10 to number 9, you go, hooray. But a lot of people won that day. So I talk about a few events, kind of the evolution of this and how we measured. That's Ninja Penguin. Ninja Penguin guards the penguin line. So we will talk about everything from the penguin line. So on June 4th, something happened. And I was pretty sure something happened, except that nobody was talking about it. So I thought, well, I know there's a lot of air. Maybe I'm crazy. And then I saw some chatter. And then I talked to the guys at SERP Metrics who've been very nice during this process, and they said, you know, we saw something too. And I think it was Greg Bozer, actually, who jokingly, it was somebody from Google S, I can't remember, called it the Bigfoot update, which ended up being very appropriate. And so I wrote a big post about this, but I got to dig in and I found a couple things that were interesting. This is Bigfoot's footprint. Again, this is 1 through 10, but this is a little different than the other visualization. The day before Bigfoot here, these are the unique domains across the top 10. So the letters and the colors are unique domains. The first domain got the top 2 spots. 3 through 10 were 8 unique domains. So we had 9 unique domains in the top 10. The day after Bigfoot, the top domain got 3 spots, up from 2. The second domain got 4 spots, up from 1. So 5 domains in the top 10 now, overnight, from 9. And I started to see this pattern repeat across half a dozen rankings or so. But I said, you know, I've got 1,000 rankings. I got 10,000 URLs. What does it look like across the entire data set? Well, here's what I saw. Prior to Bigfoot, we were running about 5,800 total subdomains across the 10,000 URLs. So again, 10 rankings times 1,000 keywords. After Bigfoot, a consistent drop, 2.6% drop in unique subdomains. Something had happened to that domain diversity that seemed to be permanent. I didn't graph it out to the right, but it goes on for quite a while. And so I kind of thought, well, you know what? Again, what's normal? 5,800, 5,600, I have no idea what this number should be. So what, if we stretch back to what we have, what happened? Well, something weird happened. This is Bigfoot over on the right. This is Penguin back on 424. Prior to Penguin, we had over 6,000 total subdomains in that 10,000. There was a massive drop on Penguin, and there was a massive drop later. And I'm worried about something. And there's a story with what a lot happened in June. And what I'm concerned about is that you have to remember Penguin was punitive. Penguin was not a search quality update. Penguin was a punishment. Penguin was Google saying, stop doing that, exactly as Greg said today. And when you do that, sometimes bad things happen. And I think that there were after effects of Penguin that Google didn't expect. And I don't think they did this on purpose. I don't think they were trying to crowd domains and reduce diversity. Google actually had something in March they called the Horde update. It was buried in the quality highlights, where they basically said they wanted to reduce crowding. They wanted to get more diversity into SERP. So they pulled some levers. But if you look at the data, it wasn't happening. Whatever they keep doing to change something in the algo keeps making this go down. And I think the lesson here is that there are a lot of unintended consequences of the complexity of the algorithm right now. When Google does something, 3 other things happen. So speaking of diversity, 5 domains dominate the rankings. This is data for June. Wikipedia, Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, 10.7% of the total URLs across the 1,000 keywords. Almost 11% of those 5,800. Now realize this is 5 of 5,800. Those 5 dominate. All right, a couple other updates I want to talk about. We've gotten in a bad habit of looking at the Panda updates as all the same, 3.5, 3.6. I have data back to 3.5 now. This is Panda 3.7. Crushed the Penguin line. Even Ninja Penguin's a little surprised. We actually had a weekend rollout, which is extremely rare for Google. Weekends are usually pretty quiet. And what looks like a 5-day rollout, 3 days had more flux than Penguin. And this was minor. This was Panda 3.7. It's supposed to be minor. Panda 3.7 was an algo update I will bank anything on. And I think it probably should have been Panda 4. This was not a data update. Something big happened. And I don't know if it was just 3.7, or if Google rolled out more than one thing, or if Google rolled out something and something went very wrong. But I think the lesson here, again, I'm afraid in some ways it isn't very actionable, but what I want you to realize is when you hear these things, 3.7, oh, that must be smaller than 3. We don't know that. We're guessing at how to name. We're naming these things, and Google's saying, OK. We say, Matt, should we call it Panda 3.7? OK. Sure. Then he comes back and says, oh, well, no, that one was pretty big. That one was small. He never says that, but 10 years later, over beers, we learned that. June 18th, something happened. Again, at Top Penguin, it took 4 days. No one talked about it. No idea. Haven't had a chance, unfortunately, to dig in. But there are things happening all the time that don't get names that we don't know about. And this was a big one. This is actually our biggest event on record so far. Oh, and Google said that day, no update. Barry did ask. I asked Barry now, so Barry will ask. And Matt said, nope, nothing. So a couple questions. Is a natural thing to think when you see these multi-day patterns is this just bounce? Is this something changing and then something changing back? So let's say it's Tuesday, we have a big flux, we have a big delta 10 because something changed from Monday. Then on Wednesday, everything changes back. Well, we'd see 2 days of very, very high activity, but if we looked at Wednesday versus Monday, well, nothing changed. So I decided to take a look at that. This is April 8th, pretty quiet, pre-Penguin. And instead of just looking at 1 day delta 10, I stretched it out across the 10 days. And what you're seeing here is the algo is not bouncing and bouncing back. The algo is permanently changing. You look at day 10, you're up to a day 10 of over 4, which would be higher than any event we've recorded. Now, it does plateau. It doesn't keep just shooting up to infinity. But this is not a pattern of your rankings bouncing and then coming back and bouncing and coming back like they might have done 5 years ago, where you just relax and go, that's today, but tomorrow they'll be fine. This is the long-term change, and it's rapid long-term change. So I'm going to show you a few. This is a visualization I made up. It took 4 hours the first time, and then I decided to code it, and coding it took 4 hours. So 3 slides took me 9 hours, and at that point I was like, God damn it, I don't care if these make any sense at all. They're going in the deck. So you will appreciate the next 3 slides. Now, it's much less weird than it sounds. Over here, I got to run all that. I'm getting too much one place. We have top 10, 1 to 10. This was right after Penguin, because that 10 days was pretty quiet. This is a quiet keyword, biodiesel, for some reason. 10 URLs over 10 days. So the blue to red is just unique URLs. So we move across the 10 days, and not much happens. The number 3 and number 4 spot kind of swap. That's about it. All right, OK. This is a medium. This is kind of an average keyword, car calculator. 13 URLs over 10. So what you see on that 5th day, that's a new URL popping into place in the number 2 spot. Then it goes away, and number 2 comes back. You see some shuffle in the 5 to 10. But you're not moving a lot. I mean, it's not crazy. This is a volatile keyword, stocks to buy. Look at day 1, it all looks blue. That's actually 10 different colors because there are 37 URLs in play over just 10 days. And what you're seeing is permanent change. Look at day 10. 8 of those URLs weren't even around on day 1. In 10 days, the profile of the search has changed completely, and it's not coming back. It's not bouncing like the slide before. If you were here in number 8, you're gone. And so if you're in this competitive landscape, I want to say this isn't an algo update. This is just the day-to-day normal reality of that keyword. And what we see here actually is interesting. I dug into a bit. This is a QDF phenomenon. This is basically a whole bunch of very large sites with a lot of power who write a new article every couple of days. And so every couple of days, a new URL comes out, and they're powerful enough to kick right into the top 10. So if you don't have that power, you're not there. But if you're tracking those URLs, by the time a week has passed, they're gone. Everything has changed. So what's normal? Well, it's not good. Over May and June, 79.7% of SERPs changed every 24 hours. I want to explain that. This is not over the course of May and June. This is every single fucking day. 80% of SERPs have changed. This isn't Penguin. This is normal. Now, some changed a lot and some changed a little. You know, maybe you had 2 swap plays. But that's massive to me, and that's what we're trying to, that's our normal, and we're trying to figure out what's abnormal. This is SEO in 2012. If you're not prepared for that rate of change, if you're tracking rankings the way you did 5 years ago, if you're sitting on 10-year-old content and strategies from 10 years ago and just riding your coattails and hoping everything will stay okay, it won't. Because even if the algo doesn't change, 80% changes every day. A couple graphs just for fun. These aren't real important. Google's busiest day, well, there's a reason we don't like Mondays. Google's pretty busy on Mondays. The weekends are quiet. Funny thing is the weekends were really, really bad in June, so I ran this analysis last month, and the weekends looked really quiet, and then it changed. So I was going to tell you to take it easy on the weekend, but no, don't. Even that good news, gone. And then this is an analysis of the keywords by volume. I told you before they're split across these 5 volume bins. So the highest flux is the medium-low keywords, and the lowest flux is the low keywords. If you have any idea what that means, you know, come up to me after the show and tell me, because I just made the graph. There you go. All right, well, this is the fun part to me. You know, one of the things that's been interesting is to compare these events now. These events we all treat as the same. So this is kind of a hierarchy of what's happened in the last few months. Again, Panda 3.7, unnamed event at the top. Panda 3.5, 3.6 are way down here. Penguin 1.1, pretty quiet. Penguin 1.0, really important. 3.8 and 3.9 didn't make it on the slide, but they're actually right in par with 3.6. So we have all these events that we're kind of treating as the same, and they're not, and we need to be aware of that. The one nice thing, the gray is the average. All the named events have been above average, so I wouldn't have put this slide in the deck if that didn't happen, because that would have been bad. And then I had to throw it in. Panda 3.9 hit on the 24th, just a couple days ago. So how bad was it? Well, not very bad. It was around 3.6. It was probably a data update. What's funny, I didn't get a chance to run it out one more day. The day before Panda 3.9 and the day after Panda 3.9 were actually worse than the day of Panda 3.9. And so you start to track these long enough and you start to think, is Google just fucking with me now? Or are my numbers that far off? I don't know. But we've had 3 days of flux now, and Panda 3.9 was the small one. So when they say there's an update coming tonight, let's just say I wouldn't completely trust it. All right, so a secret Algo project launch, you might have thought, is he going to launch something? Well, not yet. I have a little story to tell first. I know there's a question some of you are thinking, and I want you to think it. And it's this: should we be chasing the algorithm? You know, we've had some great speakers up here talk about we can't rely on Google. We can't have all our eggs in one basket. We should be doing more content marketing. We should be doing RCS like Will talked about. Greg's talk, same thing today. I absolutely agree with that. I don't want you just to chase the algorithm. I don't want you to be completely reliant on Google for your business. I believe in content marketing. I want you to do good work. I want you to build better products. I want you to talk about things that matter to you. So why am I doing this? Am I just doing this because I'm a data nerd? Well, yeah, sure. Am I just doing this because Rand pays me? Yeah, why not? It's fun. But there's 2 other reasons. One is that all this great stuff we've talked about, I'm sorry to say most of you aren't doing it. And when these updates hit, they hit most of you hard. And I've seen it this year with clients. I had a client, you know, and I'm not saying they lost a couple keywords. You know, I had a client where it was too little, too late. I came in very late. Their business went under. They were going to lose their house. These were nice people. You know, they hadn't done anything shady. They'd done some things that, they'd let some things slide. You know, they hadn't done the kind of work in the last couple years they should have. They used a business model that was getting outdated. but they weren't stealing anything. They weren't buying links. They weren't doing anything bad. And their lives have fallen apart. And that's a story I've seen, sadly more than once. And I have a lot of people come to me now and say, basically, I'm screwed. Can you help us? And part of it's that. I want you to be prepared. I want to defend you a bit. I want you to know what's going on, because until you turn things around, until you're not completely reliant on Google, you need to know. But there's another reason, and this one's a little crazier, but I believe this. The algorithm is our portal to all of human knowledge right now. And you might say, well, wait a minute. We have Facebook and Twitter. We have all these ways we can talk to each other and blah, blah, blah. But what is the only one collective resource of all of our knowledge so far? The biggest thing we have is the internet as a whole. It dwarfs the Library of Congress. It dwarfs anything we have. The only engines that really take all of that information and index it in a way we can view it are the search engines, the major search engines. Try to crawl as much of the web as we can. And the web is the closest thing we have to a repository of all of our knowledge. And Google controls 60% of that market. Google controls 60% of our access to our own knowledge. And this isn't just, where do I go get a haircut? What's the best pizza kind of knowledge? This is everything we know. It's how we access information. It's how we shape our opinions. We see it with politics. We see more polarizing. It's how we understand everything. And it's shaping our culture, and it's shaping us. And 60% of this is controlled by Google. And the algorithm is a filter. And we have to have a filter. Please understand, I'm not saying Google is bad. You can't look at the whole internet. Oh, we're not Neo in the Matrix, and oh, hey, I see people in there. We have to have a filter. You can't just put it in alphabetical order. The algorithm is essential, but the algorithm is controlling how we see all of our information. And you have a company that, good or evil, controls most of that. And it doesn't matter what their motive is. It doesn't matter if they're good. I think that should scare us a little bit. And I don't think we think of it that way as SEOs. So should we chase the algorithm? Yeah, you're damn right. I think we should hunt the algorithm. I would like the algorithm to wake up screaming in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, wondering if we're right behind it. And saying, holy crap, I hope Dr. Pete doesn't get me. Because the algorithm, if it gets away from us, we're in trouble. And I sincerely believe that. So end of crazy sci-fi rant. I'll settle down. So I was going to launch something, an hour ago or so. So let's do that. So this morning, MozCast.com went live. MozCast is the Google weather report. I decided I shouldn't have all the fun. This is a direct translation of our Delta 10 metric. We're trying to be very transparent. So actually, the weather on any given day, the temperature is just Delta 10 times 28. An average day is about 70 degrees. And just for fun, we have these little weather states. It's a little weird because it's actually directly dependent on the temperature. But sunny, partly cloudy, cloudy, rainy, stormy. The stormier it is, the more change. The higher the temperature, the more change. So if it's 100 degrees and rainy, stay indoors that day. So I won't go. You can check it out later. We've got a couple of things. We've got a 5-day history on the left. You can't see it. I should have done another graph. There's actually a 30-day history down at the bottom. You can scroll over anything in 30 days and see the down to 1 decimal point, I think. The events page shows all of the major named updates for the last few months and gives the severity. So, I want to be able to give you that data where you can see that, Panda 3.7 was 101 degrees. Panda 3.5 was pretty cool 68. I don't remember what they were. Because I think that relative view is really important. So this is in beta, but it's working now. This data's been collecting since April 4th, so I feel pretty comfortable. And definitely, I'll be around until Saturday, so talk to me about it. We're also launching a new Twitter account, @MozCast. So please follow that. I will tweet out the weather in the morning. And, I'm hoping now that things have settled down, I can do more analysis when things happen and kind of get into some new techniques. So it should be fun, and check it out.
Was that today's weather? Was that today's weather that was up there?
That was yesterday, so it's always the day before. It's always yesterday.
That's
yeah.
really, that's
yeah.
really
Oh no, that
cool.
slide wasn't. That slide I did on Monday. If you go to it now,
You know
it
what
will
it
be
reminds
yesterday.
me of? In California, we have a lot of earthquakes, and we have the earthquake graph. So when it happens, you get this this chart, and it shows where they were and how big they were, and everyone can go in and like talk about what happened. And
I always like, my wife is
see
from
that
Northern
as
California, from the Bay Area, and I like how they have to make up weather in California.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's
don't have
still
it.
72 and sunny today, so it's like the wind fluffiness index is 308.
Yeah, we
Because otherwise there'd be no weather people, and they have nothing to do.
So I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions for, so whew, hands everywhere. All right, let's start back there.
Hey, oh, hello. Hello. I think I speak for everyone, or at least myself. When I say that was amazing, I think it was really awesome. One thing I was wondering was for individual sites, I think it would be really interesting for them to analyze this kind of shift and movement over their own set of keywords. Do you have any plans to open source the kind of analysis tools and certainly the kind of visualization stuff to help people analyze their own set of keywords in this manner?
If you're interested in that, this is very much an aggregate view. You know, we're really looking at Google as a whole. We might hope to dive a little deeper later more into niches than individual sites, but if you're interested in that, please come for Martin McDonald's talk tomorrow morning. I'll try not to spoil too much of it, but a couple months ago, Erica sent Martin and I our 2 descriptions, and we kind of read the first line, and we went, oh shit. Are we giving the exact same talk? And then I saw his slides, and we went, no, this is good. So Martin's going to show you a very different angle on a similar idea, and if you're in a competitive niche, or if you're operating a big site and you want to kind of collect this data for yourself, stick around for him tomorrow. You're going to like that. All right, Jeff.
Hi, just a general question, kind of two with this is, one is, just for clarification, is this being run once a day, and then is this being run, sorry, a little techy question, are you running this as well, like the same server, or are these going across different servers, and so the data might fluctuate in that regard? Yeah,
it is run once a day. We try to keep it consistent right now. We might look at changing that up a bit. I don't want Google to catch me, so we are borrowing the results from them. Let me say this: we do use proxies, you know, so we are trying to keep it off of. It's not one main server. We try to keep them consistent, so each keyword has the same proxy if we can at roughly the same time. So within a keyword, we keep it consistent, but across keywords, we use a variety of locations. I actually, a couple of months ago, kind of dawned on me that this entire thing, this weather station, is just a chunk of code and data. And so I split it, and I actually have a station A and a station B now. And so I actually run 2 sets of data every day. And you do see a lot of noise, and the numbers are different on any given day, but what we see, B runs from a different location. I mean, it really is like a weather station in Kansas and a weather station in Los Angeles. And what we see is that the pattern of change from day to day is pretty consistent across the 2. So yeah, we've done there was definitely a lot during the early days of, what do we gut check this against? You know, Google doesn't tell us anything, so it's, you know, this number versus a black box. So we are running 2 now concurrently, and they're pretty consistent. So we're trying to improve that as we go. And actually, I'm going to use the second one more for fun now, you know. Shift it 4 hours, see what happens kind of thing. Because the time shift matters. You know, if you go a few hours out, it's a big jump. I mean, this isn't just 24-hour change. Things are changing every hour. Mike is like dying over there. I don't have the mic. I'm sorry, man.
Test. So first of all, thank you. It was great. We're definitely seeing the Bigfoot update that you've brought up in terms of domain diversification. 2 questions. Why do you think they haven't talked about it, or do you think that it maybe hasn't been as volatile as maybe you had seen? And then we also have a theory, interested to hear what you think about trying to increase PPC for them by lowering domain. You now don't show up, so your only option is to buy into that spot. So just your thoughts on the update itself and why, and it just seems like the user experience is lacking.
I agree with that. I agree that a drop in domain diversity, I think, is bad for search quality overall. Do I think that Google's doing it on purpose, and do I think they're doing it for PPC? I don't really think they're doing it for PPC. I'm not even sure they're doing it on purpose. They seem to be trying to react to it. I think it's a side effect of some other changes. And what I suspect is this. We've had a lot of buzz about brand advantage. Like, our brand's getting all this advantage, and is Google purposely giving them an advantage? Big brands. Well, I think what's happening is that I wrote about this a few months ago, that the ranking factors as they evolve are bringing in more offline signals. So, what did we have originally? We had on-page. And with on-page, any mon-pos site, if they got the formula right, could rank. Well, then we had links. Well, links are a little tougher. And if you're a big brand who doesn't really do SEO actively, you might still attract links. And then we had social. Well, you could be a big brand who doesn't do any SEO, and you're still getting mentions. People are talking about you. And I think Google has to do that to some extent. They have to bring these offline factors into the algo so that it reflects the real world. And the real world is unfair. Brands have an advantage, so they have an advantage online. So I think we're seeing some of that naturally bleed into domain diversity. I don't know. I don't know how much of it's on purpose. I'm concerned that it seems to keep happening. I only have 3 months of data, but I'm going to keep tracking that as a variable because it does seem to be getting worse. And I do agree that I think it's a bad user. What happens when we're down to 3,000 or 4,000? Should 5 domains have 1 in 10 rankings? That's crazy to me. And sure, they own YouTube and Wikipedia. We all see it in #1 way too often. But yeah, I think it's getting worse. I don't know why. And I don't know what to do about it. I wish I could turn that into something actionable. That's kind of the next step. But what can you do about it? Well, you can be a big brand, Be bigger. Be richer. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Peter. So, over here. So, with your scores, let's say, is it a linear scale or is it more logarithmic? So is a 3.5 considerably double a 3.0, or is it?
No, it's essentially linear.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to interpret the exact number, but yeah, it's not like a PageRank or a DAPA kind of score.
Got it. And in terms of domain diversity, are you looking at the domain name, or are you also including subdomains? Because it seems like a lot of the spammier sites are going to have a much wider diversity of subdomains, and we're kind of seeing a shift away from that, perhaps.
Those graphs, the 5,800, were subdomains.
Got it.
Were unique subdomains. So yeah, like an Amazon.com versus, I don't know. If it was www versus something else, shop. I would count that as 2 in that. Yeah, I'm going to try and break that out going forward, but right now that's just subdomains.
Thank you.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
So kind of 2 questions. One is about the domain diversity. I wondered what you had to think about with regards to localization of terms. And the second part would be just before Bigfoot was when Google initiated Google Places to Google Local Plus, which are indexable. So I just...
Yeah, that's true. These are basically straight organic, and we're trying to delocalize them. So we basically are looking at Google.com US results delocalized. So I'm not really measuring changes in local results. Yeah, no, that is possible, definitely. Yeah. I've tried to pull out anything that was obviously local, but yeah, we definitely did see a shift where Google started to treat things as local that weren't necessarily local. I don't have a good answer to that. I haven't been able to, I can't tease that out right now. But yeah, we've seen some things like that that could. Yeah, when we saw Knowledge Graph rolled out too, it shouldn't affect what I'm seeing, but. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was basically that before Bigfoot, there was the change in Google Places and whether this had a tie into that. But also, Google is starting to treat more results as local intent that were not local intent. And am I seeing any of that in the results? And I mean, the short answer is it's very possible, but I don't know.
So I have a question for you back here. And since you're tracking all of these different keyword segments and domains, and you're aware of what's shifting up and down, could you take it one step further and monitor the commonalities and the differences amongst those shifting domains to reverse engineer the algorithm?
So there is a lot of noise, and it is kind of hard. As we get into a smaller set and say, okay, well, let's look at just 10% or 5% of this, it's going to get trickier and trickier. Yeah, I don't know what the next steps are yet. I mean, we're trying to reduce the noise. We're trying to probably make the system a bit bigger. I think the big question for me right now is when something happens to kind of build a system of metrics, I can easily go back and say, what happened? So this domain diversity is one number. Well, there are probably 5 or 6 numbers like that where if I see a big change, I want to be able to quickly look back a week and say, okay, as we break down to these metrics, what changed? I don't have enough data at this point to really dig into, say, a niche, an industry category or a specific set of sites, but that could come down the road. Yeah, we're not there yet. This actual site's existed for 2 weeks, more or less. So the data's been out there a while, and Derek and Casey I have to thank because they kind of pulled it together quick.
Over here, Pete.
Hi, I had a question about, you're kind of assuming causation from Google's Algo or changes to that, and is there any plan to include actual site data that could be impacting their own SERPs rankings, like maybe using the data that SEO Moz contains from crawling the sites as well?
In terms of a site causing a change themselves, just lose my mic.
Yeah,
oh, there you go.
They gathered more inbound links, and those guys.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And that's when we see that 80% shift a day. That's not just the algo. That's people doing SEO. That's competitive landscape changing. No, absolutely. Right now, that's kind of all in the mix, and that's why we're trying to take. That's kind of why we try to take the day-to-day and try to figure out what that normal number is, because that normal number reflects what's everybody doing. But you're right. As you dig down into any given site, and this is why our job is so tough. If you look at my rankings change, just one, well, what did you do? We all want to blame it on the algo. Oh, I get 3 calls a week. My rankings tanked. It was Panda. Like, well, first of all, you've been tanked since 2009. I mean, I literally had a call like that the other day, so I'm pretty sure that wasn't Panda. You have 5,000 spammy links, and you dig in 5 minutes and you see, I don't think the algo's at fault here. So yeah, no, that's a tough question. It's an interesting thought that we can tie in some of the site data we have site to site, but that's going to be a while.
I guess I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to a question. And you talked a bit about the fact that Google is telling us what they want us to hear. And I kind of see what's happening here in that it could be maybe one of 2 things that's creating a problem for us. One is that it could be, yes, Google's telling us what they want us to hear. And for them, maybe it's very convenient for everyone to be very, very focused on pandas and penguins and not really taking any notice of the other stuff that's happening. But the other side of that is it could just be that we're really being ignorant and not focusing on the other stuff and kind of zeroing in on things. So do you have any sense of, I guess, what that means for us, how we should look at that? And also, just a little second question, which is maybe not for you, but did all of this completely freak out the guys at SEO Moz who are doing the ranking stuff?
Hey, I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
Did this all freak out the guys who are actually engineering the rankings tool in Pro for SEO Moz?
Oh, no. So I should say, actually, we don't use any client data. This is engineered all on its own. So they kind of let me run by myself. So
no, I didn't mean that. What I meant was that we're getting weekly reports, and this is kind of saying that a whole lot of stuff is happening. And does that raise, I guess, issues for the way that the reporting's being done?
Oh, well, I don't know yet. I'll find out when I get the calls tomorrow. But no, your first question, no, I think that's valid. And again, I'm not a Google conspiracy guy. Part of it's our fault. You know, even if these search quality highlights, for example, were completely a real effort to be transparent. And I will say this, that they put a lot of effort into those. Those do take time to write and do, and they didn't have to do that. I think it's making us lazy. And so, you know, what should we do? We should stop being lazy. You know, look at the media. He said, she said, because real reporting costs time and money. Well, we have to get off our asses and dig into this information ourselves and not just take this free gift and go, thank you. Because I don't know if it's a Trojan horse or if it's not, but we're not doing our jobs then. You know, I think we have to be more proactive.